So how this is going to work is we're going to go through the college future bets. We're going to go by conference, keep it easy. That way when you go to put in your bets, you could just go conference by conference. Keeps it easy, keeps it clean. But the first one, we're going to start in the ACC. NC State, their win total is set at 8.5. NC State to win the ACC is at plus 800. NC State has a lot of things going for them this year. Honestly, they're a really solid football team. But first and foremost, I truly think that they have the best quarterback in the ACC in Devin Leary. He is a gunslinger, cannon of an arm. I know Miami has a good quarterback as well. DJ Uyunglele at Clemson is solid, but he didn't have a great year last year. I'm a big fan of Devin Leary and what he's going to do for NC State. He could play his way into being drafted in the first round next season. That's how good this guy is. They have a pretty easy out-of-conference schedule, and I think they hit this number pretty easy. They should be favored in like 10 to 11 games. We'll see what the lines come out to as the season goes on. But NC State is a team that I'm really high on. Great quarterback play, great coaching. NC State to win the ACC too is a fun little bet. I like plus 800. Obviously, you're not going to throw, a ton of units on this one, but at plus 800, if I'm going to take a long shot to win this conference, Clemson is favored, obviously, but I don't really like going with the favorite to win these conferences unless I think it's an absolute shoo-in. And if DJ Uyunglele doesn't take a step forward this season, I could see Clemson taking a step back. I mean, they didn't win the ACC last year. Pitt did. So give me NC State over 8.5 wins. The other ACC bet that I have, we're going Georgia Tech under 3.5. And let's be honest here, Georgia Tech just isn't very good this season. They've had 3 straight 3-win seasons, and we're kind of sensing a pattern here. I'm taking under 3.5 wins again. This roster isn't any better markedly than what they've had on these teams in the past. And when you look at their schedule, which schedules are impossible to predict in college football, but their out-of-conference schedule, they play Ole Miss, UCF, and Georgia. I am a gambling man, and I am not willing to bet on them winning any of those games. They're going to need some luck. I don't think they get it this season. So Georgia Tech under 3.5 wins is my last bet for the ACC. Moving on to the Big 12. There are several Big 12 bets that I like this year. One of them is Texas to win the Big 12. They are not the favorite. They are second. Look, everybody knows that, or at least everybody that listens to the podcast knows that I am a diehard Texas Longhorns hater. I am a Texas Longhorns hater until I die. However, they're in a good spot this season. Oklahoma has a ton of turnover. They lost a lot in the transfer portal. They obviously lost Lincoln Riley going to USC. I like Venables. I think he should have been a head coach for a while now, and he finally gets a shot. However, this is Texas's best opportunity to win the Big 12, at least in recent years. They have far and above the best weapons in the conference. I think they get it done. They have James Worthy, an incredible wide receiver for them. And Quinn Ewers has been named the starting quarterback. He's an absolute weapon, a 1.000 recruit grade, whatever that's worth. But I do think he's going to be a good quarterback for the Texas Longhorns this year. So give me Texas to win the Big 12. Sarkisian in that offense, I think they can do it. Rolling next, we have TCU and the Horned Frogs over 6.5. This win total for TCU, I'm going to be honest, it's highway robbery. It's thievery. It's blasphemous. Losing Gary Patterson is tough, right? He has been a staple of that program. I think he's a head coach for 20 years, right? That is consistency to a T. You can't ask for any more than that as a program. However, they're bringing in Sonny Dykes, from SMU. He's a damn good coach. Like, Sonny Dykes is a damn good coach. He did a great job at SMU, stays in Texas, should have a decent crop of transfers coming in to make this transition a little easier. I know he has some guys coming in from SMU and other places, but it's not a miracle for TCU to get 6.5 wins. Like, for them to get to 7 isn't like above and beyond the normal. I could absolutely see this team going 7, 8, maybe even 9 wins. That might be a little bit of a stretch, but 6.5 I don't think is by any stretch of the imagination. Let's keep it moving. Big 12. Last bet of the Big 12. We're going Kansas State over 6.5 wins. Now, Kansas State is, in my opinion, I think Kansas State is going to be a sneaky top 25 team before the season's over. They are that good. I think it honestly has a chance to happen pretty quickly too. They have Heisman candidate running back Deuce Vaughn. And if you don't think he's a Heisman candidate, you ain't seen this kid run. He is unbelievable. They have incredible offensive support around him. I do have the back end of the defense. The secondary, I got a little bit of concern. But Kansas State has the ability to put up points, so I don't think it's going to be incredibly difficult. Their out-of-conference matchups are very easy. Should be 3 easy wins, boom, boom, boom. You get OU, and then Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Texas at home, right? So OU on the road, that's going to be tough. But Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Texas at home, I really think that they have a good chance to end up as a 9-win team, honestly. I have Texas to win the conference, so I don't think they win that game, but I think they can pull off some of these upsets. Kansas State over 6.5 wins. Love that bet. We're going to move to the Big Ten, Big 12 to Big 10. I'm going to be honest, Ohio State's winning this goddamn conference. And it's not like this isn't some sort of hot take. The college football playoff has included either Alabama or Ohio State every single year since its inception. This year will not be any different. I'm not going to lay, they're minus 215 to win the conference. I'm not going to lay that. So I'm actually not betting this, but I just want to put this out there that I do think they're going to win the conference. If you want to parlay this with another future bet, I don't hate that at all. I think the amount of weapons they have CJ Stroud, who I think is the favorite to win the Heisman. If not, he's second to Bryce Young. Basically what you're betting on here is if Ohio State beats Michigan. So you can wait to bet that game rivalry week if you like, or you could just bet Ohio State to win the Big Ten now. So moving on, Purdue over 7.5 wins. I know this is probably this bet might be unavailable by the time this podcast comes out because they are playing Thursday night against Penn State. However, Purdue has the best quarterback in the Big Ten, not named CJ Stroud and Aiden O'Connell. He's an absolute weapon. Jeff Brom is a great coach. I think they upset Penn State. It's actually going on right now, so we'll see how that goes. But their out-of-conference schedule is really easy. Indiana State, Syracuse, FAU should be a cakewalk. 7.5 should be easy money here. The other Big Ten team that I'm taking is Michigan State over 7.5 wins. As of right now, this is a plus 100 odds, which is great for over 7.5. I love this team, and I understand that they lost Kenneth Walker, right? Like one of the best running backs in the history of the Spartan program. However, their offensive line is good, and they keep a majority of that offensive line. They should still be able to run the football this year. Peyton Thorne is a solid quarterback. Mel Tucker is a good coach. When you can keep that sort of continuity, offensive line, quarterback, coach, all in the same season, I like that. I think people are sleeping on Sparty a little bit, but they have their first 5 weeks are one of the softest schedules in the country. I would be stunned if they didn't start 5-0. They get Wisconsin at home, and then they have a 3-game stretch of Illinois, Rutgers, Indiana. If they don't get 8 wins, I would be absolutely stunned. Absolutely stunned. So I'm high on Sparty this year. Pac-12. This is where it gets interesting, right? I love the Pac-12. A lot of people are on USC. I am not. That is a 4-win team last year. They won 4 games last year. Utah is the favorite to win the Pac-12, in my mind, or they should be. I understand that USC has Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley, but again, that was a 4-win team last year. That roster it's not a complete overhaul. And I think they have the second best quarterback in the conference in Cameron Rising, if not the best quarterback in the conference, to be honest with you. This Utah team is returning their best offensive weapons. They have far and above the best defense in the Pac-12. And I don't think that's even a point of discussion. I love Utah here. Plus 240. Give me all of that. And a big game, week 1 against Florida, so should be exciting. I also have them over 9 wins. Utah over 9 wins. All the reasoning that I just said, we're sticking with that. But Utah has a pretty easy out of conference schedule outside of the Florida game. So if they can beat Florida week 1, I think this 9-win, you have cushion. They could lose to USC and still hit this 9 wins. So give me Utah over 9, even if they lose to Florida and every single ranked team on their schedule. Utah pushes. They'll push 9. So I like Utah this year. I think they're a college football playoff team, to be honest with you. I think they're going to be in the college football playoff, but we talked about that in the last episode of the podcast if you want to check that out, my college football playoff predictions. We're also going Arizona State under 6.5 wins. ASU's in a tough spot. Jaden Daniels transferred out. He's going to be the starting quarterback at LSU. They play Oklahoma State in an out-of-conference matchup, and then they play 3 of the best 4 teams in the Pac-12. They play Utah, they play USC, and they play UCLA. They lose the battery of their offense. They lost Rashad White as well as Jaden Daniels. Rashad White was a great receiving back for them, now on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was a ton of their offensive production. You lose that, you couple that with a terrible defense, and their defense is abysmal at best. I think they massively overachieved last year with their 8-5 record. I don't think they come close to that this season. Give me under 6.5 wins. And that wraps up the Pac-12. The SEC, I know what you're here for. The SEC, it just means more, right? Alabama to win the SEC minus 145. I cannot believe the odds are this low. Georgia lost everybody defensively. Death, taxes, Alabama. That's the 3 things in life that you can count on. Is that like it's unbelievable that Alabama is minus 145. I'm parlaying Alabama to win the SEC and Ohio State to win the Big Ten at plus money. That shouldn't happen. But it is, and I love that for us. Alabama not only has they have the best roster in the country, not just the best roster in the SEC. They are returning Bryce Young. They're adding running back Jahmyr Gibbs from Georgia Tech, an unbelievable transfer. They're loaded defensively. They have Will Anderson. They have the defensive end on the opposite side, Dallas something. He's unbelievable as well. I think they're an incredible team. They should be the number 1 team in the country. Georgia lost a ton in the draft, and if this game comes down to Bryce Young versus Stetson Bennett, Bryce Young is going to win that matchup 10 times out of 10. So give me Alabama to win the SEC minus 145. I think it's absolutely incredible. Another team that I am very high on, even though I hate the coach, LSU over 7 wins. I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I'm obviously biased against Brian Kelly, but LSU's getting absolutely slept on. Brian Kelly, say what you will, he does win football games. They have one of the best wide receivers in the country in Keyshawn Boutte, and they're stacked defensively. Like, say what you want about LSU, they are going to get after the quarterback this year. They're going to make it really tough for opposing QBs in the SEC. I hate Brian Kelly, but damn it, he's going to do it. We talked about Jaden Daniels with Arizona State. Well, he's coming in to LSU for the Tigers. And when he had NFL weapons at Arizona State, he was incredible. Absolutely incredible as a freshman. Now he gets one of the best wide receivers in the country on one of the most dynamic offenses. He should be great for the Tigers. I think they start off the season winning against Florida State. This team should hit 8-9 wins. No problem. I think 7. You're going to give me 7? That's easy money. Last SEC bet I got, Ole Miss over 7.5 wins. Look, we all know Lane Kiffin can score points. That's not the question here. I understand they lost Matt Corral, right? But I think Matt Corral is pretty overrated, to be honest with you. I don't think that's like a shock to anybody, but this offense is going to put up a ton of points. They have a great running back in Zach Evans, who, if you don't know the name Zach Evans, like for those of you who are tuned into the NFL draft, you're going to know the name Zach Evans by the time the NFL draft comes around. He is an incredible, incredible running back. And they have some guys transferring in to fill holes at wide receiver. So I really like how that offense is looking out. The beginning of their schedule is a breeze. I mean, they might as well not show up. I would be stunned if they don't start at least 5-1 out of their first 6 games, like at least 5-1. And then they have to win 3 of their last 6. Like, I get that like an SEC schedule is tough, but if you have to win 50% on the back end, that should not be a problem. Let's hit the independent teams. My Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I'm taking the over 8.5 wins. They essentially have, in my opinion, 8 surefire wins on their schedule. So that means in order to get over this total of 8.5, they're going to have to win one of the following games. One, Clemson at home, Ohio State at Ohio State week 1. I don't think they win, but hey, who knows? They have BYU in Las Vegas, neutral site game, and then they have USC in USC last game of the season. I think they win BYU. They're going to be favored against BYU. I also think they'll be able to upset one of these other teams. I think they will either upset, well, as of right now, I guess the game against USC is not an upset, but our ranking will drop once we lose to Ohio State. But I think we'll be able to beat either Clemson or USC. I really do. 8.5 wins. I don't have a problem with this. I understand the uncertainty of a new head coach, Marcus Freeman. I get it, but they're returning a vast majority of their coaching staff, including their offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees. They have 15 returning starters, which is huge. They have an incredible offensive line. I think they'll finish the season in the top 10, as they usually do, honestly. The other team that I like here, Army. Army. Look, there is a lot to love about Army this season. One is their coach. Monken is an unbelievable head coach. They have a tough start to the schedule. They play Coastal week 1. I think they upset Coastal at Coastal in Myrtle Beach. But they have a lot of winnable games on their schedule. I think they beat Air Force at home or Troy, and this should hit. Army's a solid team. They're just well coached, solid football squad. And if you bet against them, that's kind of anti-American, to be honest with you. And BYU over 8.5 wins. Look, we talked about BYU when we talked about Notre Dame, and they're not a world beater, but they have a pretty easy schedule outside of the Notre Dame game. They have 8 games that I think are for sure. Then they have to beat Baylor, Oregon, Notre Dame, or Arkansas. And they play Arkansas and Baylor at home. I'm down on Baylor this year. I think they can beat Baylor at home. Oregon's a winnable game. They return all 11 defensive starters from a team that went 10-2 last year. So I love BYU. I love the Cougs. Give me that over 8.5 wins. Moving on, we're going to keep it moving to the Sun Belt. App State to win the Sun Belt plus 210. I like Coastal, and I'm on Coastal to hit the win total, but App State is the best team in this conference, and I don't think it's super close. They play UNC week 1. I think they beat UNC week 1 at home. ULL has the best odds, but they lost Billy Napier to Florida, their head coach, and several transfers. So give me App State to win the Sun Belt plus 210. Another bet that I can't believe is a thing, Georgia Southern under 4.5 wins. This team stinks. I mean, this roster stinks. They start the year with their easiest game on the schedule. It goes downhill very quickly. They play Nebraska and UAB both on the road, Coastal on the road, ULL on the road. They play all the best teams in the Fun Belt. They play on the road. And then they hired Clay Helton, who was awful at USC. So give me Georgia Southern under 4.5 wins. And then the Shots, baby. Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers over 8 wins. Grayson McCall is that guy. I understand that they're losing a lot offensively, but Grayson McCall is that dude. They start out against Army. I don't think they win that game, but they can roll out. They can start 6-1. Like it's a 6-1 start for Coastal Carolina is very reasonable. They'll just have to win 3 out of their last 5 to cash. Jamie Chadwell. I think Jamie Chadwell will have a Power 5 coaching position very soon. He is a phenomenal coach. We're going to move on to the MAC. This is my favorite college football future all season. It is Toledo over 7.5 wins. I have them at 10 wins. I bet them to win 10 plus games at like plus 400. I also have them to win the MAC at plus money. Look, Toledo could be one of the best non-Power 5 teams that we've seen in a while. Like, obviously, Cincinnati last year was incredible, but they're going to be one of the best non-Power 5 teams in the country this year. They have an incredibly easy schedule outside of playing Ohio State. They legitimately could be favored against every team on their schedule. They have a great roster. Jason Candle's a solid head coach. This is my favorite bet of the entire season. favorite futures bet, Toledo over 7.5 wins. Another MAC bet, Western Michigan under 6.5 wins. Look, they're a solid program recently, but they lost their best offensive weapon in Sky Moore to the Kansas City Chiefs in the draft. They're only returning 4 offensive starters. Not a lot of continuity there. They went 8-5 last year, but they got a difficult schedule. They open against Michigan State at home, and then Pitt and San Jose State in the first 4 weeks. It's tough. It's going to be really, really tough. Outside of Ohio and New Hampshire, which, hey, New Hampshire, go Wildcats, they don't have many sure wins on their schedule. I like the under 6.5 here. Moving on to the Mountain West. New Mexico under 2.5 wins. Look, they are awful. Do not overthink this. They are one of the worst teams in the FBS. They legitimately could go completely defeated. Over. They should probably beat Maine week 1, but honestly, it's tough. They were 120th in point margin in college football last year. 120th. They averaged less than 11 points a game offensively. Awful. Absolutely awful. Best bet of the Mountain West, though, Fresno State to win the Mountain West, plus 240. I like Fresno State this season. Their out-of-conference schedule is pretty tough, but their conference schedule's fairly easy for the most part. They're playing most of the bottom of the conference. And then Boise State, who I think they can beat. I mean, in my mind, this comes down to Boise State and Fresno State, and I think they can beat Boise State. The Bulldogs were top 20 defensively last year in points per game. They bring back 7 starters from that unit. Give me the Bulldogs here. Fresno State to win the Mountain West, plus 240. Last 2 conferences here. We're going to rattle these off pretty quick. Houston to win the American, plus 250. Houston's the best team in that conference. They have a legitimate chance to be this year's Cincinnati, although they're not making the college football playoff. Do not get that twisted. They got a great offensive mind in Dana Holgerson. I like him as a coach. He knows how to score points. They were top 20 in points per game last year. Clayton Tune is a good quarterback. A great college name and a great quarterback. I think he does enough to carry this team to a conference title. I think UC kind of takes a step back. I'm not a big fan of Ben Bryant, their quarterback there. And then USF under 4.5 wins. They legitimately are the worst team in the conference, in my opinion. Their offense is comically bad. They've had very to little improvement. Their out-of-conference schedule is tough. They play BYU, Louisville, and Florida. I think they lose all 3 of those games. They should be... I think this team struggles to get 3 wins, honestly. So give me USF under 4.5. And then last bet, Conference USA. We got to throw one in there. UAB to win the Conference USA. It'll be a little different this fall. Some teams moving around in the Conference USA, a little bit of a shakeup, but UAB is a solid program. They finished with 9 or more wins 3 of the last 4 years. They did top 20 defense in yards per game last season. They're bringing back 5 starters from that squad. They got a solid conference schedule. They match up against UTSA, who I think is their biggest threat to win the conference at home. So give me UAB to win Conference USA plus 240. And that is my Conference USA bets. Again, subscribe to the channel because I'm gonna be putting out bets all season long. And if you guys want to support the channel, that's the best way. Just subscribe and send it to a friend. I appreciate it. I really do.